Okay, I want to talk to you about grading a little bit and some things that I've done. And we have kind of a scale from traditional to progressive. And traditional, the most traditional, would be cumulative points. And this is where all student work gets points. The grade is then a calculation of the percentage of the points. This is what we've all experienced the most of as students, and this is what many of us have done the most of as teachers. And I will say right up front that I do not like this method of grading, and I don't think it's appropriate. When you grade this way, everything becomes a numerical value. The focus of the student's energy and attention is how many points did I earn, as opposed to how much did I learn. And you can see my other video, Eradicate Point Grubbing, to learn more about that. A step up from that is categorical points. So at least things are broken into categories. So the 5 points earned on a test might not be worth the same in the final calculation as the 5 points earned on an introductory assignment. If you think about it, you want your grade to be most influenced by their demonstration of their mastery, not their demonstration of their learning along the way. So, if a student doesn't do well on the first assignment of a topic, but in the end has mastered that material, why are they cumulative points penalizes them for those early failures? Why would you want to do that? Moving up a step further, holistic and points hybrid. This is where some things might not be given points, but just they would get feedback on that. So this might be the things that are truly those introductory things. You don't record points for those. You don't have it count against them in the grade, but they still get feedback. But then everything else moving from there, bigger assignments, quizzes, etc., are points here. And I want you to think about how we're thinking about these points. It's kind of always in the negative, counting against them, as opposed to getting feedback that is helping them learn more. And that should be an indicator that something's not quite right with just using points. Okay, the next category is holistic. And I've used this quite a bit for a number of years. And this is where there are no points given at all. You're giving a grade, though. And so there's often a rubric with it. So they get feedback that might give them a rubric that shows them why they got an A on it, or a B on it, or a check plus, or a check minus, or whatever your system might be. But the focus here is not on the number of points and an accumulation of points. So it breaks that cycle of trying to just get the points, and it shifts your conversation with the students to thinking more about how did I do on this assignment as a whole. It also allows you as a teacher to challenge students a little bit more. You can give it back to them and say, you've met every criteria here for an A. What if you dug a little deeper here? Go a little bit further. But you're still clearly communicating that you've done everything at an A level. Now let's just dig a little deeper and go a little further. And so they know that I've done everything expected. I've done it very well, and I'm going even further. And this is where it requires more trust from the students, because they might not, they're used to that cumulative point and that math calculation that they do to know exactly what grade they're going to get. So with students, you want to make sure that you are tracking and they are tracking what are the grades they're getting on smaller assignments, like check pluses or check minuses or A's or B's or whatever it is. And from that, give them some guidance on how they can tell how they're doing in the course from that. Otherwise, they'll get pretty anxious about it. Next category I call formative holistic. And formative holistic there's no grades or points on the very small things, and all feedback and evaluation is narrative. They're not getting anything except a written description of how they did on something that's very small. But as soon as you get to the larger stuff, then they're getting grades. They're getting some direction on how they did on that thing. Summative holistic, there's no points on anything or grades until you get to the final summative. And so everything is formative up to that point. It doesn't count for or against them. It's just feedback. And then the only thing that goes into calculating their final grade for that unit and then for the course would be just those summative grades. So those exams or those big projects or those papers. In some ways, this is freeing for students because everything up to learning it is they can make all the mistakes they need to learn it and it doesn't count against them. But then it does make those final summatives pretty high stakes. And if you have just a few of those, then that can be very anxiety producing for students. And think back in college, this is often graded this way in a traditional lecture class. You might go to lecture 3 days a week and have a midterm and a final, and those two grades make up your entire grade. And think about how much anxiety that produces. So if you're going to use a system like this, you need to have lots of formative along the way so that they are getting feedback so that they're confident in their learning. Unit holistic is very similar, but you are breaking the course down into units, and then each unit just has a final grade based on how they did on all the formative and then the summative for that unit. Course holistic, this is something I've done more recently with my college students, and it's actually worked quite well. And that is, I give nothing but narrative feedback on any assignments, any summatives, any projects. It's all just narrative feedback. Nothing gets a letter grade or some other signifier like a check plus, but it's just feedback on how well they did. And I have to be very careful with this because they're going to have a lot of anxiety about how they're doing if I don't give them really detailed feedback and tell them in that feedback that they've done really well with it if they have. So think of this example. The only somebody turns in a paper, they, in my mind, have done really well on it, but the only comments I give them are to have them go even a little bit deeper, which maybe would be beyond what my expectations were for that assignment. But from the student's perspective, all they see is a negative, like, oh, I got to do more stuff. I must not have done well. So this kind of feedback really requires that you give detailed feedback of both the positive and the things that they need to do better in. And so that they know that if they get feedback that says everything on here is wonderful, they know that, okay, I'm going to convert that in my head. I'm doing A-level work. I'm doing okay here. But it still allows you to focus your energy on the quality of the work, not the math calculation. And when I do this, then I give the assignments back to them with this feedback, and it's always their prerogative if they want to make changes to it and fix it based on the feedback I'm given or dig deeper even. I welcome that, and they can hand it back into me. And so the focus is really on mastery. This works much better at a college setting where you don't have assignments every day. If you had assignments every day with elementary kids and you were doing this, and it would be very hard to keep up with the grading, giving that narrative feedback on everything. The last and the most progressive then is open-ended, holistic, all narrative. I've never been in a school where I could do this. I've always had to at least give a course grade. My kids went to an elementary school where this was the case, and all they got was narrative feedback, and it was wonderful. We didn't worry about grades. They didn't worry about grades. We worried about goals they set, and then the teacher gave narrative feedback on those goals throughout the year, and we knew what things our kids could do well and what things they needed to work on. It did require a different kind of work from the teachers. They had to give really good feedback on the things that the students got returned to them, the big projects and the small projects and so forth. And it required work on the part of the students and the parents to have open communication with the teacher so that we could understand and trust that the teacher was giving us feedback that told us how our child was doing. It also required more ownership on the part of our kids to know how they were doing and know the goals that they had set at the beginning of the year and to understand what they needed to work on and what was going well and what wasn't going well. So they used it in conjunction with student-led conferences. And that worked quite well, where the student led part of the conference and telling us, here's what I've done, here's how I've done on these goals, here's my work I'm most proud of, here's what I've struggled with. And then The second half of the conference, the student would leave, and then we'd talk with just the teacher, and get the teacher's deeper input into how our child was doing, and then also elementary school, a lot of interpersonal stuff and growth in that area too that the teacher was tracking and watching as well. My experience with grading is that the further you can get to the progressive end, the more the conversation shifts to the student's growth in subject areas and skills and mastery, and less it is about the actual grade and the math calculation of the grade that they got.